Willkommen und herzlich willkommen. Good morning and very welcome to our Impact Day. It's our fourth event on Impact as a film festival, and this year we are hosting it together with AG Doch, which is an extreme pleasure for me. And next to me is Valentin Thurn, who supported us in developing this day and coming up with the idea. And my special thanks goes to you, your board colleagues, and Eric Meininger, who was also from the start on board and supporting us in developing it. Thank you so much, and thanks for being here. And my second thanks goes, as always, if it comes to impact, to Vivian Schröder, who is always a source of inspiration, has ideas on whom to put on stage, and thanks, and she's going to be your host the second part of the day. So, Valentin.
Thanks a lot. Hallo, guten Morgen. Ich bin Valentin Thurn von der Arbeitsgemeinschaft Dokumentarfilm. Das mal in aller Länge auszusprechen, das ist der größte Berufsverband der Dokumentarfilmer in Deutschland. I'm switching to English because some of you don't understand German, so it's the German Filmmakers Association, around 1,000 members, and we are really grateful to you, Anna, to pushing the impact topic since many years, I have to say, and it is still in a developing stage, in an early development stage, we would say, as filmmakers here in Germany. But yeah, we will hopefully, with this event today, find a breakthrough and continue next year much bigger. I will tell you later on in the day what we are planning. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I would say we directly start into talking about what is impact and why impact is so important for films.
Yes. Is it a question or?
No. I was trying to kindly ask you off stage to get.
Okay.
I'm sorry. We need better run-off shows. So, as I said, we are going to talk about impact, and before I welcome my first guest on stage, just a quick thought why we are doing that as a festival. We are not just a documentary film festival, we are a documentary and human rights film festival. So at the core of our existence is showing films to have social change. And I'm working in the film industry for over 15 years now, mostly with documentaries. I had a small break in the human rights scene. And what I see is that if we run campaigns, if we use documentaries, and if we push them and work together with stakeholders from elsewhere, we really can reach a large audience. It helps the film, but it also helps the topic of the film. So that's why for us as a human rights film festival, it's so important to talk about it and to support filmmakers and impact campaigners in their work. And that's also why we host one or more events on impact each year. And we hope that the crowd gets bigger every year and more filmmakers will join us. And my first guest on the stage is, she just had a film in the cinemas and she did an amazing impact campaign. And I think her film is a really good best case example of how impact campaigns can, first of all, really make a change and really reach people, but second, support the film's lifespan and reach and making it more accessible to a bigger audience. So please welcome with me Elvira Nivira. I hope I got that right.
Thank you.
So the film we are going to talk about is the Hamlet syndrome. And should we watch the trailer first, or do you want?
Yeah.
So I would ask our lovely people in the technic room to start the Hamlet syndrome trailer.
Я Гамлет, тому що я контужений.
Я Гамлет, тому що я боюсь.
Я Гамлет, тому що я досі живий.
Ночі, обстріли.
Так і пішли 1,5 року. Що ти хочеш почути?
Жити чи не жити?
Стреляй, сука! Стреляй!
А ти вбивала? А ти стріляла? А що ти відчувала, коли ти стріляла?
Якесь йобане мудло, блядь, бігає нахуй зайчиком, блядь, коли в мене війна, сука. Я не хочу! Не хочу!
Context. Do you want to tell us something a bit about the film itself? When you start shooting, what was your motivation to shoot it, and then what happened in the moment that you released it?
So generally I made 3 documentary movies, and all of them had very good reception worldwide on festivals, and all touches social issues. And I always thought, before this movie, I thought about an impact campaign, but I never reached the level to fulfill it, to do it, to act. And the reasons were first that I had no one who could support me. The second one, I was always somehow too late, because actually you have to start thinking about the impact campaign during the shooting or in the post-production process. And I was so aware about shooting and post-production that it was just too late. And this time, we started the research 2018 for the Hamlet syndrome, and we wanted to draw attention to the war that has been going on in Ukraine since 2014. Because the fact that people were dying and suffering for many, many years, I mean, the word forgot, got used to it, ignored. And we wanted to show what it means to be at war and what war leaves behind, and how difficult it is to return to one's life. And our protagonists are examples that it can take years to build a new life, normal life again. And it was clear for us that people are very used to images of war, and that we need to find an emotional level for this movie to show what price people pay for being at war. And we initiated a theater performance, rehearsal and theater performance, and we to try to go in a deeper reflection process with our protagonists. So we chose our protagonists, and we asked them to take part in 40 days of theater rehearsal. And this process we observed with the camera, and it was a process of going back to very difficult war experience and memories, and to somehow lock out their memories. And finally, I mean, the movie is 60% on a stage. We are also going to their families with them, with the camera. But we were on the 24th of February, when the invasion started. We were in the post-production process. And suddenly, Ukraine became the #1 topic in the world. And I knew at that moment that my protagonists are still facing PTSD, and what this kind of events, how it will trigger them. So I was in contact with them from the very first day. And I will tell you a short story to come back to the Impact campaign, because there is a kind of motivation behind. On the 24th, three of my protagonists were mobilized in the morning, and Katya, one of them, which I was in contact with, her military base was bombed in the morning. And she was in a forest with 60 other soldiers, and she sent me a long list of stuff they need, because they had no uniforms, nothing. And this was like the situation of many battalions, units in Ukraine, because Russia bombed in the morning all the military bases, which they know where they are. And of course, it was very easy in the first days to convince friends to collect money, and after, I don't know, 8 days, we had all the stuff which Katya needs, and was like bulletproof vests, helmets, night vision cameras, tourniquets, medical equipment. Already we sent morphine to the field hospitals, because the first days were very horrible, and many of the people were urgent. After this first experience, I realized that all this stuff is extremely expensive. That one vest cost €1,000, and how to help further, how to send more transport, because I received more lists in the next couple of weeks. And one mother of my classmates of my daughter recommended me to give interviews in Rotary clubs, in Lion clubs, and Soar Optimist clubs, especially for women. And I could explain, because I had first-hand information from the front line, and I could explain about the movie we are finishing, and about the situation on the front line in Ukraine. And at that time, I was not aware that this is actually my community for an impact campaign. And after one of these interviews, I received a call from a woman from Bavaria, who told me that from now on, she will finance all my transports. It was unbelievable, because I thought it's a joke. And I was very scared to give the money in advance for, I don't know, 30,000 euro, because I was afraid maybe she will not give it to me back. But with her together, we sent next couple of months help with cars, with drones, with more and more tourniquets, with special trailers for the paramedics. Later on with generators, we even sent big, huge, actually 5 tons, huge generators for air forces in Ukraine. And at that point in summer, at Locarno Film Festival, we had the world premiere of the film. And after the screening, I came on the stage and I saw 700 people crying, 700 audience crying. And it was for me clear that I can communicate with the audience through the movie, that the film can be a tool to fight for Ukraine. And I also invited for this premiere in Locarno some of the people from these Lions and Rotary clubs. And we set up an NGO to collect money at the same time with Ulrike, with this woman. Actually, I forgot to mention that we even evacuated an orphanage house from Ukraine to Bavaria. The children and the person who are taking care are still there. And I was day and night actually working and organizing stuff, because of course she gave money, but I was the person alone, without my producers and without even my co-director, which is my partner. I was trying to help my protagonist, which also helped me, because you can imagine that having first-hand information about torture, about mass murds, kidnapping, it is difficult to bear this kind of horrors emotionally. And to act, to help, to organize, helped me to relieve my pain and to stay in contact also with my protagonists, because it's difficult just to call them and to say, how are you, in a situation where they can die every second. So in January, do you have a question or can I?
I have a question.
Sorry,
but you can
because
continue talking, whatever you prefer.
Yeah. I just wanted to say that in January we had a cinema release here in Germany.
That was my question.
Okay, so I'm good in the dramaturgical structure is good, yeah?
It's perfect.
And we had a very good press feedback here in Germany and big interest of the media. But of course, as you know, the numbers of audience in a cinema are very low. And I can compare it right now to the screenings I had organized the first tour in the first week of the cinema release, organized by the distributor, and then my impact screenings and the interest in my impact screenings. And actually we started the first impact screening with 2 Rotary clubs 3 weeks after the cinema release. And we had in a small city called Kall am Main. I don't know if the Germans even know the city. 600 people.
Wow.
And we had people who represent the Green Party, and they started also to organize help for my protagonist after the screening. And we always, I tried to be always there for a Q&A to explain more about the protagonist nowadays, because of course in the film, we shoot the film 2021, so it was before the war, but on the emotional level, it works very well to connect, that the audience can connect today with the fate of millions of Ukrainians who are fighting, who have to face war now, and represents also people who have war trauma, PTSD in Ukraine. And I'm still in this process of having screenings. Maybe this first one, it was very clever from Ulrike, because after the screening in am Main, she invited there many representative people from different kind of clubs, Rotary and Lions clubs, and we had after the Q&A a meeting for 80 people for 3 hours Q&A, which I never had before, with really a very deep discussions, because you know all the people in these clubs, they are of course working, many of them on very high positions, and they knew the problems, and they are interested in the problems, and they are interested to support, to donate. And this was for me the perfect community I could work with. And Ulrike was some kind the
You're an impact producer.
My impact producer. Yes, thank you. That's true. So we start to organize many screenings, and always with in collaboration, not only with one of the clubs, but in the cities or in places there are always many of them, and we collect the money. And of course, from the moment we set up the NGO, which calls Existentia e.V., we couldn't support army anymore, so we start to concentrate more on paramedics by sending very special stretchers that one paramedic can evacuate alone a person, and one stretcher costs 1,200 euro. Yeah, small piece of plastic, actually. And we also support, and we are building up right now a special centers where, because the field hospitals are a little bit far away from the front line, but next to the front line we try to build a stabilization center where the doctors can even make small operations. And for example, today, in 1 hour, I'm sending a transport with operation lamps for few of those centers. And a few weeks ago, we sent a car with a special lifting platform to Donbass for the communities, that they can on their own repair electricity lines after artillery or after rockets attacks.
Now I have questions for you.
Okay.
Two very brief, because we're a bit running out of time, but I want to ask you two things. You know that we have heard what you reach through your impact campaign and through your work and by convincing people in terms of reach for your film, but in particular to help people on the ground. I know that you had support by Chicken and Eggs.
Yeah, we should
to think about impact. Can you very brief tell how important support for impact campaigns already in the development stage is? Because we're trying to convince German funders to come on board.
So 2021, I received a Chicken and Egg Pictures Award. I don't know if you know, it's a well-known American organization, supports women and non-binary documentary filmmakers, and they support directors which have like a unique in the artistic and innovation storytelling, and who inspire social change. And they have different kind of funds, also an impact fund, development, research and production fund. And they have this award, which they are nominating every year 50 women from around the world. And at the end, 6 women getting the award. It means financial support plus 1 year mentoring. And you can choose on your own on what you would like to work. And I was very interested in that time in impact campaign. So they helped me actually to identify, to define what my impact campaign with this topic, with this movie could achieve. And we try also to define the communities. But at that time, I still had the feeling that it's an extra audience, but not, I couldn't see the effects which a film could have on particular group. But the war and the situation which I came from one day to another, actually I start backwards. I had the need, and the film was the tool to fulfill it. And I really made a deep experience that a film is not only for an audience, that a film can go beyond the artistic message and can act and can go beyond the border and reach a stage of humanism or for understanding. And I need also to mention that I was traveling 1 year through the whole world on festivals. We had more than 30 festivals worldwide. And also there, of course, I was not collecting money there, but there was like more advocacy and talking to the people and connect them somehow with this, what Ukraine is still going through.
Oh, wow.
And I have also to mention that in Poland we also had a theatrical release and a small impact campaign, which had a completely different aim, because the Impact campaign was organized by the Human Rights Film Festival in Poland.
Watch Dogs.
Watch Dogs, yes. And they concentrate on screenings for Ukrainian refugees and organized after the screenings talks and also meetings with therapists.
Oh wow, that's awesome.
And there were even therapy sessions after the screenings for people, because we had the feedback at the beginning that many of them taught us Ukrainians that this film gives them kind of hope that you can overcome trauma.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. I think, give her a warm applause. I know that yesterday was the election in Poland, and I know that you're busy working on the Impact campaign, so I'm very grateful that you took the time to give us, I think it was the perfect start in the day, because your film and what you did with the Impact campaign really showed what's possible. I would love to continue the conversation, but unfortunately we are on a very tight schedule. But hopefully you're maybe a bit longer here so that people can ask you questions in our break. Thank you so much, and
thank you.
As I said, I've invited Elvira because I think her campaigns really shows on all levels what an impact campaign can achieve. On one hand, really change for the people, support for the people through the therapeutic sessions in Poland, for example, support for the people on ground she was shooting with, support for herself as a filmmaker who was working on a very stressful issue, and I think self-care within the filmmaker community should become an even bigger topic. And last but not least, also support for her film, because it did change the audience, it did bring more people to the cinemas, because in particular with human rights issues, I think it's sometimes difficult to just throw it in front of the people and say, watch it, and then we go away. But that's my very personal opinion. And I'm not alone with this personal opinion, and I'm going to invite to me on stage some people who have a same or similar idea, and talking about the next, we have a bit, 40 minutes about what is impact production, because I think there are out there quite a few different thoughts on that. So I'm going to invite Vivian first on stage. As I said, she is my partner in crimes. She's a German impact producer. And then, of course, we have Valentin Thurn, whom many of you, I think, know. He is a director and producer and very, very successful with his impact campaigns. He's going to give a best case example later today. We have Hasse van Noonen, Dutch impact producer and producer. So we are very international there. And then we have Khadija Benoif. Please, Khadija, join us as well. And Khadija, by the way, is also an impact producer, Algerian French, and she is the reason why I'm trying an experiment today, which I'm kind of afraid that it will work. We both fall in love with ChatGPT. And we thought, as a start to this panel discussing what ChatGPT is, oh my God, what impact producing is, we will ask ChatGPT, and I give you the honor to ask our nice KI to give us a definition.
Yeah, because now, we have to live with ChatGPT. So the first thing when I tried ChatGPT, because I'm a very curious person and living in my times, the first question I asked was the question where the answer for me was complicated, because as Anna said, there are different conceptions and definitions of impact production. So I asked him, what is impact production for films. So maybe we can see if
I think we will get the answer in a second. As I said,
we can have
someone in the back is typing currently, asking ChatGPT, and then we should see it on the screen in a second, I hope. Otherwise, I will ask them. Yeah, there, see.
Oh wow!
Oh wow, that's a very, the answer we received the last time was very much shorter.
Oh, maybe it's ChatGPT 4.
No, it's
He's
free.
more talkative.
It's impact production. Oh, yeah. Can we ask him to give us a 280 signs description of impact production? You see, I worked with ChatGPT, I know.
And I think the first...
But the first... impact production in the context of filmmaking to... I'm very blind, sorry. So impact production in the context of filmmaking refers to the practice of creating films and other audiovisual content with the primary goal of inspiring social change, raising awareness about important issues and driving action. It's a concept that goes beyond traditional entertainment and storytelling to focus on the positive impact a film can have on society, culture, or the world at large.
Wow.
But the second part is interesting. Maybe we can start talking about this. But the
Let's start
second part is
talking
important.
about the first part. So would you agree? Question to all four of you.
Yeah.
Would you say that's right, or is an impact campaign something different for you?
Well, I think the social change is really at the center. That's our goal. That's what we want to achieve. And then there are different nuances to it, how you can achieve that. So I see there the key elements. So there's some good, the call to action and the grassroots engagement and so on. What's your thoughts?
Well, I think that it's not only about creating films for that matter, but also working with films that are already in the making and creating an impact campaign around it, because we believe that that particular story can make social change, make positive change.
So Valentin, would you agree that it's less about the film that is the campaign, but you need to create a campaign around the film? I think.
Yeah, it's much more than a film, but seen from a filmmaker's perspective, I would say, I would come from another direction and say, not every film would work with an impact campaign, so it's rather the films that can transport societal change or debate or transformation. It's a lot of cultural, ethical, political issues, but it's not all the films. A lot of films wouldn't really work with impact campaigns. So that's maybe important for anybody who wants to start it.
Khadija, you're the ChatGPT mastermind. Are you happy with the answer? It's different than the one you got the first time.
Yes, it is, which is interesting, actually. It was in Poland. Yes, also.
So the first time we played around it already at Her Docs in Poland, so different answer in different locations.
Yeah, I think what has been said by Hassan, also by Valentin, is important. And it raises a question that we are often asked as impact producers when we do workshop, is like, do you do the film for the impact? So is the intention before starting to shoot, before making the film, or does it come within the shooting production, or does it come after? And I think that for me, impact production impact has always existed with films. Films have always had an impact, and we had this conversation yesterday with Hassan. What changes is that today we make strategies to make sure that the films will move the needle on a social issue. And so for me, impact production is the implementation of the strategy.
I have a question there, because I mean we are talking today to a filmmakers audience, producers, directors, but also funders and TV stations. And what I've heard in the past, in particular in Germany, is that as a documentary filmmaker, you need to be objective. you need to be distant and you need to be independent. And often that's the reason why, in particular, if TV stations are on board with films, it's difficult to start an impact campaign because there's always the thought and people being afraid that it interferes too much with their film. Could you maybe, whoever wants, maybe Valentin goes first.
I can already tell you about my experience. I mean, I also come from journalism, and there these ethical issues play a big role, not to be biased. It's not valid maybe for all of the cinema documentaries you have. There's more freedom. Also to be biased, whatever, but the moment you work with TV broadcasters, they are very suspicious, and especially during production, having an NGO or a corporation on board financing the film, they would refrain, they would go out. I mean, they're very strict on that, and I usually convince them by saying, okay, it's only for the distribution part, it's not for the production part. The film is finished, they haven't had any influence on the film, but afterwards, by distributing, you can work with any partner. They have their interests, but the film is already done. So, and secondly, when you choose your aims as a filmmaker, I mean, you're conceiving your impact campaign. Genuinely, it's a broader aim than a campaign done by an NGO. When an NGO does a campaign, it needs to be really narrow, focusing on the change of a law or to collect money or whatever. I mean, it needs to be very sharp, an NGO's campaign. A campaign, an impact campaign done by a filmmaker is rather broad, is to create a debate, to start a debate in society. So it's a different form of campaign, but they can perfectly work together.
So maybe, Hasse, you're also a producer and working with impact, and you're working from the Netherlands, who is, to my personal perception, a bit more open to the issue, and you're a bit further than. How do you see the, to elaborate what Valentin just said, the difficulties of impact campaigns, maybe also?
I think that we are not more open to it, maybe, but we started it a little bit earlier than most of the other European countries, because when we first introduced the impact producer in the Netherlands, it was 2015. Of course, people were already doing it, but then it became a profession. We had this conversation for a year or 2 years. Oh, but it's going to take away our independence or whatever. But we've been over that conversation now a bit. And I think that I want to add to what you're saying is that two things. Really, the introduction of the impact producer is key to this, because, and sometimes, of course, there's filmmakers who are doing the impact as well, but if you have an impact producer next to the director, that makes the director more independent, because the impact producer is doing the impact production, and the filmmaker can do whatever they like. And the impact producer's role is also to protect that independence from partners, so that's, I think, key. And the other thing, to me, as a producer, I keep the budgets very separate from each other. So there's a budget of the film and a budget of the impact production. And I also say that to all the partners, especially the financial partners, you can say something about the impact production because you're paying for that, but you can't say anything about the film because you're not paying for that.
And are there funds in the Netherlands who particularly give money to impact production?
Yeah, more and more.
More and more.
It took some time, but we're now 8 years further, and a lot of, actually even some funders changed from giving finances to the film to impact production, which of course we have to change back because that was not what we...
They should give additional money.
Yeah. So we're now in this process of professionalizing impact. So we're telling the funders again, you made a mistake, we should back to.
Both.
Maybe a question for Vivian and Khadija, because we are talking about professionalizing impact production. I mean, when I started back in the 2000s in Austria working for a documentary distribution company that, by the way, also distributed Valentin's films, we had no idea that there's a word out there that is impact production. I came across it the first time as a good pitch in 2014 or 15, I think. Back then, we named it marketing, target group marketing, audience development, something like that, we saw the potential of the films. We knew that otherwise the cinemas would be empty, and it was something in between. So there was no clear break between marketing and impact production, how we call it nowadays, but it was very successful and we all fall in love with it. Nowadays it professionalizes, and I know that you two are in an association of global impact producers where you're trying to also train impact producers, which is also Doch is supporting that. Where do you think is the biggest need? Why do we need to train people to do that? Why can't they just come out of marketing and do it?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
I think that also, especially in Germany, right now, when I give workshops also, I'm mostly at film universities. And of course, that's where, from our perspective, the impact campaigns start, because it all starts with a really impactful, emotional, great film. But impact producers don't necessarily need to come out of the film industry. And I think there's something where we need to go broader also as, you know, coming from the storytelling field, that we break up the boundaries between the NGO bubble, the foundations bubble, the activists bubble, the also storytellers, filmmakers bubble, but to also think about, hey, we all have one goal, which is actually to reach people and to engage them for certain topics and to create a change. So yes, we need, on the one hand, more impact producers. It goes all hand in hand, and they need to also be recognized as such. This is a new job. And at the same time also that there's funding for it, because otherwise we cannot survive, our new species.
Yeah, because that's what happened in the Netherlands, because we were first, from the 2015 on, we were training impact producers for a couple of years. And then they all went to do something else, because there was no funding for them yet, so they couldn't survive as an impact producer. So now we're doing it the other way around. We first set the funds, and then we're going to train again, because otherwise it's
useless.
It's useless.
Because people need to live from something. Khadija, I know that in France, just something very wonderful. I know it's time limited for now happened, but actually TV stations together founded an impact fund, because if I understood it right, it's the year of documentary. So you got a special fund. What in your perception did change there? And for the fund, do you have enough impact producers already? Because if you set up a fund, you immediately need someone who realizes it.
So it's two questions. First, why do we need impact producers? Because, as Hasse said earlier, and we are working together, all three of us, on a program called Caravan, which would be an European impact training. We need impact producers because impact production is a job. I mean, it's a full-time job. It's intense. There's a lot of work, and maybe we, at some point, need to explain everything we do when we do an impact campaign. It's a lot of skills that we have to. So this is why we need training. The second thing, the funding, and make it a sustainable job. This is what our next mission is. So the fund that was created in France is a good example, and I hope that it will. That it will continue, and that it can be also done in other countries in Europe. So it's the three broadcasters, France Télévisions, Arte and Canal+, who teamed up with the National Fund, the CNC, and so it's a matching fund. So the broadcasters put 8,000 euro and the CNC puts 8,000 euros, which makes 16,000 euros to start an impact campaign, to hire an independent impact producer. Also because a lot of today in the model that we know most of, the impact producers are the filmmakers themselves, whether they are the producers or the directors or both of them working. But you are making a film, and it's really important to have a good film. So you need to focus on your film, and this is why it's nice to have an independent, a freelance impact producer to do the work of impact, so you can concentrate and focus on making a good film. But again, it is a job, so it requires to be paid, because we are talking months, sometimes years of work. And so this is why it is important to have funding. In Europe, we are starting to have, and to bring philanthropists on board, because what happened in the United States, for instance, and why Impact has thrived, is because they had big foundations, philanthropists, that gave money for Impact. Because also Impact is cause-related. So when you give money for an impact campaign, you give money for a cause, specific cause. And in Europe, you are starting to have foundation, and we have a Storyboard Foundation, and Trisha, who's here, who are helping us a lot in terms of impact. But we need to bring on board more philanthropists, because it is a new way, you know, it is a new activism, it's a new way of changing.
We're still far away from that. I mean, remind that in the US you have like marketing budgets bigger than the production budgets. We're far away from that. We used to play around and ask directly to NGOs and corporations, but it's not really, there's no public structure for that.
I have a question for you, because I'm thinking about that point in particular for quite a while. Was there ever a survey in Germany looking at the marketing budget of feature films and the marketing budget of documentaries, and looking at the return of effect? Because I think that could be very interesting.
That would be interesting, yeah.
Maybe that's our next program.
The moment you make a
project for next year,
an impact campaign, how many people additionally come to the cinemas? Yeah.
I think that would be a very interesting survey. Maybe, hopefully, I'm an optimist, proving that the concept works. I think you just mentioned something very important, Khadija. The question is, which kind of skills does an impact producer need to bring to the table? So if filmmakers here in the room look for a person by their sides as impact producers, is something that everyone can call themselves. If you want to find a good ally, and that's a question to all of you, and maybe every one of you can give me a thought on what's in your point really important. What kind of skill set are you looking for? Which kind of person should one look to be a partner? Because it's a partnership.
Definitely. Yeah, it's a team effort. I mean, you can't do an impact campaign on your own. It's very tough. Depending on how big you dream, you need, usually the bigger you dream, the bigger you need to have a team. But what skill sets? Well, on the one hand side, you need a creative mind who can think differently to a filmmaker and the film team to think about, okay, how can we use this film in a really impactful and creative way so that people actually notice it. So
you also need marketing skills.
Exactly, you need marketing skills, and also, of course, talking to the partner organizations is a very different talk than what you have in the film industry. And then usually choose your impact producer who comes with a network within the topic, usually that you want to work within. Maybe if you have got really good partners, they can come with the networks, but usually the impact producer needs to come with a network as well.
Valentin.
But please you have always to have in mind, and I know that you do, of course, but anybody who is looking for partners, they are not, NGOs are not, their aim is not to do marketing for a film.
Yeah.
Don't think about that. It's about a topic and you partner and you use the film for this topic. And in this case, you find partners that really are interested to be involved. It's not, I mean, probably the cinema distributor, and if it's only for TV, it's the TV channel. They need to do their market. Still, the normal marketing has to be done anyway. Yeah. And it needs a close cooperation. So you need both partners and cinema distributors or TV channels need to cooperate on the whole campaign and to find out what's the best goals. But it's not the same as marketing. That's very important.
Very important. And for the skill set, I think the impact producer is I don't know if this is the right word, English word, but he needs to be a connector. Yeah. He needs to connect. I think as an impact producer, you need to speak all different languages. The language of an NGO, the language of a ministry, or the language of the filmmaker, the language of all activists, or all these different languages. You have to translate the one language to the other, and you're connecting people, connecting languages, connecting causes, because sometimes, or most of the time actually, all these different people work for the same good cause, good fight, but they have to know from each other, and they have to work together as one. And they don't understand each other because they don't speak the same language. And I think the impact producer is the person in the middle connecting that.
I think that's very important. Just a brief example to highlight. The Human Rights Film Festival Berlin is organized by an NGO, and I'm the only film person within that NGO, basically. And so when in 2020 I said, so let's do an industry program. Let's talk about issues. They were looking at me and they were like, industry? Why? No, we can't work with industry. And they were thinking about a completely different kind of industry than I was. It was really a language barrier. Even if we were all talking in German, there was a language barrier. And I think that's what I witnessed, at least being at the intersection of NGOs, filmmakers, producers. This is an extremely important point. We do, even if we speak the same language, we do use words differently. We have different approaches. We need a mediator in between who helps us communicate with each other. Because far too often I see an NGO who thinks, oh, that's a cool film, we can use it for our cause. And then all they do is sending out one newsletter and one Instagram post for a huge cinema, and they are very disappointed that it's not full, because in their mind, it's like, oh, well, we have a film, it's a self-made thing. And on the other side, there's the filmmaker who thinks, wow, now I have an NGO, oh, fine. They will do one social media post and the cinema is full. And that's not how it is working. I'm sorry for that short. And I think Khadija can elaborate that even more.
I think what is important to understand is that an impact producer is a coalition builder. We build a coalition around a film to help move the needle on a cause and to help change things. So, and also you need to think what goes in our minds when we're working on a strategy. It's a really simple plan. First, what is the message of my film? So what is according to that message, and the strength of my film, what change do I want to see? What change do I want to help and put my film at the service of? And then who can make that change happen? These people who can make that change happen, what do they need to be able to act? As an impact producer, I am then going to try to give them what they need, whether it is my film, which gives them ammunition to do things, and this is why we organize screenings. But it can be also other actions like Elvira told you about, or it can be creating tools that are going to be around your film. So this is why it's a different job than filmmaking. It's really, you have to organize things, create things, and this is also why it's not only marketing. And then you have to think, who's going to do that with me? I'm not going to do this alone. So, and this is where you bring on board your partners who can help me do this, who knows this issue better than I do, and who can help me on the ground, on the field. And you get the NGOs on board or philanthropies and everything. So this is what you do, and this is all the skills that you need.
Yes, please.
I just want to add something like a long-term goal, because we're speaking about freelancers engaging for like a half a year or 1 year for this impact campaign, but we have a situation. For instance, we worked with a small company in Brooklyn, New York, that was like not very big, 3 producers, but they've had a distribution in task which was not very unusual in the US, where one of the 3 was an impact producer, only focusing on impact campaigns and marketing. So this is maybe a long-term goal, that our small production houses and bigger production houses also include impact as a part of their activity and really engage on a permanent base impact producers.
And I think that's very important, because we have that as well, because we are the producer and the impact producer. Social change doesn't happen in half a year, right, or in a year. So we are still working on films that we made 3, 5, 8 years ago, and we're still working on the impact campaign. And you can't do that with a freelancer, because he or she has to move on. And we as a company, we can stay to work on it. It should be in a great new world. It should be like that.
Yeah, and I think that's also what we saw with Elvira, with the conversation with Elvira this morning, because, I mean, if we think about how long the new war, because the war is going on for much longer, but this new part of it is going on, it's more than half a year. And she's still showing the film, she's still sending support, she's still working on the impact campaign. And I think that's something that also, if you look at it, it's very important to keep in mind.
Yeah,
yes,
definitely.
please.
But this is also why it's important to have partners on board, and because at some point you will pass on your campaign to others who are going to run it. And it can be an NGO, and it's also why it's interesting to have different profiles as impact producers, and sometimes people coming from NGOs, or because they can take your campaign and make it their own.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's one example in Germany, and I'm very lucky, I call myself, that I can work there. So it's a production company called Film Tank, and they produce documentary films. And the CEOs of that company have decided, okay, look, you know, we make all these films and we want to do more with them. And they've started impact campaigning without calling it that. And 10 years ago, they've also founded the Interactive Media Foundation, also coming back to that the impact should come not from the film company, but be separate. And so they are trying this out, and I work with several campaigns, and this really works. And I mean, on one of the campaigns I'm working now almost 2 years. That would not be possible if the setup wouldn't be there. I think that definitely it makes sense to think this more long term.
So I was at quite a few impact talks like this one in the past at film festivals, and last year at ITFA I also attended one, and then I listened to people going out of the room, and I think Vivian was walking next to me, and there was a conversation about, but is impact production audience development or marketing? And maybe we could try to find the fine line and the fine difference in our last 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 10, 15 minutes to go between that to make the line a bit more clear, because I think there's still a huge confusion out there.
Maybe we can ask ChatGPT.
We will see if it works.
Is impact production marketing?
Yeah, could we ask ChatGPT 2 questions? Is impact production marketing, and then where is the difference between impact production and marketing? We will see.
So no, maybe the second one is better.
The window is open. Thank you so much, Lydia.
So it's closely related to marketing, but it's not the same thing.
So the question is, where's the difference between impact production and marketing? Let's put it like that.
Let's read it. Impact production is closely related to marketing, but it's not the same thing. Impact production is primarily about the content and creation of a film or audiovisual project with the goal of inspiring social change and raising awareness about important issues. It involves storytelling, collaboration with advocacy organizations, encouraging viewers to take action. It's different from marketing. See?
Yeah. But I think the main thing is that marketing is in favor of the film. Impact production is in favor of social change. Yes. And the film is only a way.
Is the tool.
It's the tool to make that social change. So it's completely different. We use marketing in impact production. So it's a tool of impact production also. But it's...
and marketing also can use impact.
And marketing can, it's in favor of the film or in favor of social change.
But if we have a film funder in front of us, for example, I'm Austrian, so let's go with the Austrian Film Fund because it's more neutral here. If you have ÖVI, the Austrian Film Institute, in front of you, and you would be pitching for impact fund, and then you say, but it's not in favor of the film, it's in favor of the campaign.
Yeah.
Let's try to...
We have found something. At the Netherlands Film Festival, we have found something for this. So the Film Fund can support outreach, which is a part of impact production. So it's reaching out to certain groups, but they don't support impact production. But then, of course, they do support impact production because outreach is part of your impact campaign. And the outreach is in favor of the film also because it attracts more people to the film. This is the way we solved it, or at least for now in the Netherlands, but maybe in 2 years we think.
I see Valentin, Khadija, and Vivian. Yeah. Valentin, maybe you start.
I can tell you about the situation with German film funding. They would usually say, okay, impact is part of distribution, and please go and talk with your cinema distributor. And of course, there are examples, I will tell later about my own examples, where they were willing to support impact campaigns, but it's really not really rare, and it's limited, of course, because it's not really the same thing as distribution. It always comes too late because usually a cinema distributor starts with his campaign like 6 weeks before the cinema release, or maybe 3 months, but it's not enough time. And the main thing is they also say you can take a part of the production budget. You can include like creating a website or a social media, like a few thousand euros from the production budget to dedicate it to something that could be related to impact, but it's not impact campaigning. It's not enough, and it's also reducing your possibilities in production because you give away money from the same budget. So there is possibilities for a workaround, but it's not enough.
Yeah. Before I give the word to Khadija and Vivian, just a short question back to you. In the Netherlands, is then, if you say it's outreach and that's the workaround you found, so then the distributors are applying for that money, or is it the production companies?
The
just
production, both.
Both.
So we could put some lines in for they still call it impact production, but it's more like the outreach side of impact production. We can put it in our budget for the film, and they gave more money for those lines only.
So it's additional.
So it's additional, and then again we can apply for impact outreach later, but that's, as you say, that's too late most of the time. But the lines that we can put in the production budget, they are for the development of the impact strategy or outreach strategy.
That's the first step.
Yeah.
Khadija.
I think if we're talking to a film fund, maybe it's where you tell them why impact is good for films.
Yes.
Yeah.
Vivian.
Exactly. That's what's going to be my point. I mean, I think it's also a definition what we understand as marketing, right? I think it is very clear that we know that impact campaigns are a win-win also for the film, obviously, because it, let's say, gives the film a new platform, it opens it up to new audiences, it gives it more of a cause, how it can be used, and of course that's a win. And the thing though is that when we say, I mean, marketing is always about selling something, right? And of course we are selling our impact campaign, and in that is the film, but we are not out to make per se money with it. I mean, sometimes the filmmakers will actually earn some money for it, but this is not our primary goal. The primary goal is to use the film as a tool for the impact campaign, and of course the film also has a longer lifespan. Usually it has a lifespan of about 9 months, and then it's done for. And with an impact campaign, it can go on, as you said, 8 years now for one of your projects. So of course, the film is still there, it's still being used, and maybe here and there make some money also for the filmmaker, but that's not the primary goal.
Khadija, would you like to add something on that?
No, I think she said it. It's impact is good for the films also because an impact campaign will give you media attention. It will bring on board also sometimes some personalities or people who have a big reach, and they will work with your film, talk about your film. So yes, it's good for the films and it's good for society.
Yes.
So maybe if we go a step further and say, we now know that impact campaigns are good for films, that it's a good thing for funders, film funders, foundations to fund impact campaigns. How expensive is it?
An impact campaign?
Yeah, how much money would we need? Like, very pragmatic question.
It depends on your goals. It depends on your campaign goals.
Yeah. I mean, usually what you can say is
a span.
Yes, a span. So if you go, what we call in impact production is top-down, which is you have very few targeted people or audiences where you want to take the film to make the change, then that's very targeted. That can, and that sometimes is if you want to change a law or something, and you know that you can go into, for example, screening the film at the EU Parliament like you did with Shadow Game, that can move the needle quite quickly, and you don't maybe need so much money for it. That is one kind of impact. And then if you go from the bottom up, which is meaning that you want to build a big community around it and have the topic more wider spread with a film, then that needs more time, because community building is a long-term project, kind of, to get everyone together and excited about this topic and so on. So usually that is the longer-term thing. So
I'm sorry, I'm going to break you down on numbers. Like
15,000 to a million euros.
Open end.
I mean, in the States, as Valentin says, they have campaigns where the budget of the campaign equals the budget of the film.
Yeah. But should we
or even exceeds it.
ChatGPT again, what he thinks that an impact campaign should cost? we
can ask him. I don't know if he knows about the numbers, but yeah, maybe we can ask him.
How expensive is an impact campaign?
We get there now too, so it's not only an American thing. I want to add that, because we're getting now, it equals the budget of the film.
Really? Also in the Netherlands?
Also in the Netherlands, so it's doable. We're rich countries, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think what...
They won't tell you numbers.
They won't tell you.
But it's explaining everything that you have in your budget. So which,
Lydia, can you ask them, can you give us specific numbers? Just ask him, can you give us numbers of an impact?
specific numbers. In euros, not in dollars.
We will see. But no, why I ask that specifically and why I'm like, for me, no numbers. No. I'm sorry. Kai doesn't know everything.
In the millions of euros.
Yeah.
The end of the first.
Yeah, I mean, there's also a lot of, let's say,
1,000.
parts in an impact campaign that can be in kind, right? That is like like an NGO who has a lot of members, and they give access of the film to their members. This is not something that is really tangible in money, but it is, of course, creating impact and is part of the impact campaign. But yeah.
And the reason why I was asking is because what I've seen is that the idea of how much an impact campaign costs is very differently, and I've seen lots and lots of filmmakers who do it all for free, and also impact campaign managers who do most of their work for free. And as we are talking within the film industry also about fair working conditions and self-care and resilience, I think in that way it's also important to think about that you need human labor, so to say, a person who does the work, and that work needs to be paid. Yes.
I can openly tell you about my last experience with Holy Shit. This film is being screened this evening in the festival, and
go watch it.
Of course. We ask a British impact campaign society to support us, and this is kind of the level for creating a concept. They asked us for 15,000. We finally got to 10,000 euros to do this. What is the base of any start to ask funders and partners? I have to say also that, and this is the risk, I'm kind of deceived by their work because they haven't been managing to find additional funds, so they haven't been active until now. So this is also the risk. You need to find the right persons. I thought this is a big agency. They need to be good, but yeah, they were not until now. Let's see.
This
on
is
the
something
international
important.
level. On the national level, I do it myself. I have no problem, but I cannot do that in other countries.
That's also something important that I want to point out is be careful if when you are working with an agency, an impact production agency, or to ask specifically what you will get, because it can be like 15,000 or 10,000 just for the strategy. It means that you don't have the implementation of the campaign. And it means that you're going to need someone to implement your campaign, and this is an additional cost and an additional work. So it's really important. But
and
within
also to add something there, maybe include in your ask, or correct me if I'm wrong, but what I've seen is that they write beautiful campaigns that are not realizable. Is that the correct English word?
Yeah.
Because it's not the budget that you have to realize it. So in my personal
Well, you don't have the networks, right?
Or the networks.
I mean, if it's very on a political level, you need to have access to that.
Yeah, my experience is brief them very, very, very well. What's your capacities? What's your network? What should they focus on? Because they think big. I love thinking big. I'm a never-dying optimist who always thinks very, very big. But in order to realize stuff, you need.
But maybe that comes with the impact producer and the impact strategy should be the same person. Because if you have to do it yourself, you think big, but also realistic, right? Because you have to do it yourself. If you only make the strategy and you give it to someone else, you can do whatever you like.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
we are currently working within the Global Impact Producers Alliance, where we're all members of, which is the international group of impact producers. We are like 400 from all over the world. We are working on a rate sheet for impact producers, which will be hopefully useful, and you know, for each continent and countries, like so.
Which is, I think, very helpful because as it is new, I mean, you are not new to the impact field, but still there are pitfalls, aren't there?
And you cannot do it really to go out in other countries. Even if I would say, okay, my film is being screened by Arte, so it's also screened in France, doing an impact campaign from here is almost impossible. I mean, even if I studied in French, I do speak French, but knowing all the NGO and the way they work, it's so different from what is being done here. I need an impact producer in France. Yeah. And if the film is being screened in the Netherlands, another impact producer in the Netherlands. So this is kind of tricky if you go out and roll out for different countries.
You can do co-production. It's co-production, like you have co-producers. No, but it's we work in co-production.
Yeah, exactly.
That's beautiful.
Divide territories, you put all those rules on.
With the shadow game, you're going to see the mind game here, right? In the festival.
So 2 years ago, we showed a film called Shadow Game about the way of miners trying to get through the Balkans to Europe. And in order to survive that way, they called it the game. So every morning they stood up, they imagined it's just a computer game, it's not reality, in order to survive. And now one of the protagonists, and I think for me that's amazing impact, did a follow-up film. And that one we are showing here, he's coming, one of the directors is coming, and I think you should all watch it, but the impact campaign, please, was amazing.
So for this film, we had the impact co-production. They had an amazing impact campaign internationally and in the Netherlands. They started in the Netherlands, but it's an international campaign. And they've asked us to work on the French campaign. So I'm working on the French campaign, like French-speaking countries campaign, because yes, it's true, you need to have the network, you need to be on your, when you choose an impact producer also, it's important that they know the field. They know the field they work on.
Yes.
So it is an impact co-production.
So we are learning. We can also put it then, the fund on the much needed fund on a European level. For example, a creative media impact co-production fund. I'm dreaming there, forgive me.
Let's dream big. Let's dream. Yes. Let's have an European impact fund. That's
well, the Dutch media desk 2 weeks ago spoke to all the other media desks about it. So maybe...
Good.
So go to your local media desk and push for it. Say what the Dutch said is important. But if maybe we are running out of time there a bit, but maybe my last question to Valentin and Vivian. We are going into that deeper later that day, but if we are looking at Germany in particular, the 3 things needed immediately and most importantly, in your personal opinion, to start impact protection on a professional and bigger scale in Germany. I mean, there are examples. And to make it sustainable, also in an economic sense? That's a broad question, I know.
I know, we need a lot, don't we?
Yeah, well,
I mean, we're just starting, as you said in your opening words, we're in the early development. Meaning, what we have in place is that at least there's one German film funder from the Film Fund in Hamburg. They have recognized that, yes, impact campaigns are important.
But they don't have a special...
No, exactly. But at least there is a... No, not only for impact campaigns, that's true. But if you are handing in, at least there's now a pot that with developing your film, you can run impact strategy thoughts within your budget. Well, that's a start. I think also what we really need is that we get all the different players that we need, our partners in impact campaigns, to think bigger and outside of their bubble. So these bubbles need to be more intersectional, and recognize that storytelling is so important to their work, because it, can get them further. So from that side, an acceptance is important that we get that, we need the funding.
Valentin, would you
and the knowledge?
Khadija
like
just
more
want
people.
to add something in between?
No, maybe in the end, but no, go ahead.
Okay. So I think it should be, if the film funders really want to support that, it should be not included in the usual development, production, or distribution pots. It should be a different line, especially for impact. So additional, it's not a big deal for the moment. We need like 10,000 for the concept, and later on maybe more support. And it, as I said, not every film needs impact money. So applying for it and a jury deciding on if it's worthwhile, yes, of course, but it should be a separate line, and this is just the base, because then an impact producer is, of course, looking for additional money in corporations, NGOs, other organizations.
Maybe we have to invite all the German funds to the Netherlands Film Fund and let them talk among each other.
Yes,
Come on,
they
Valentin, we do for Movies That Matters in March. That's a beautiful festival. We just do a caravan from Germany to Den Haag.
Yeah, and get the French in as well,
And
because
get the French.
you know,
So we have a plan.
because you've already started now with this pilot impact fund.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we can also do the same for the broadcasters, because also the broadcasters in the Netherlands are a little bit, I feel not that we know everything, right? Because we're really still learning, and I'm running from one broadcaster to the other to tell the difference between marketing and impact. And so it's not like it's a sort of perfect world, but we should share a lot more in Europe the good cases, the case studies within the broadcasters, within the funds, and share it, I think.
Maybe to add something on the case studies, something that I was missing when I was looking through the case studies is the impact case studies are always just about the impact. I'm missing hard facts and numbers.
Yeah, sorry, I don't mean case studies on films, but I mean case studies on how the Dutch or the Netherlands Film Fund found their way to support impact, or how the broadcasters found their way around impact. So I mean that kind of case studies more than the film.
I think that would be very helpful.
Yeah.
So we have a plan for March.
Let's hop on this caravan.
Khadija, you wanted to add something.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, because we've been talking about impact production, that I think it's a job for the future. I think it's a job for Gen Z. I think there are impact natives.
Where are they?
Yeah, which is not us. But when I teach in schools, in film schools, and when I teach to this generation that are 18, 20 years old, they totally get it, and for them it's meaningful. And in a world where we are searching for meaning, I mean, I'm really grateful that today I'm an impact producer. It gives meaning to my life. And I think that, it's something, and this is why it is thriving right now, because we need meaning, we need action, we need to be a part of this world and do our little part in the world, and impact production is a way of doing this.
Yeah. Well, that was impactful closing words. I think that gave a very nice introduction in our day. Vivian in the afternoon will dive deeper in all the issues we just touched upon with people from NGOs, with representatives from foundations, with filmmakers, and we're going to have 2 more, maybe best case examples. I'm very looking forward to that. Thank you so much for joining me on stage, and I'm looking forward to having parts of you back at a later point.
Thank you.
So, I'm staying here. I'm sorry, you have, I'm going to stay on the stage a bit longer for one last session, and after that we are going to have lunch break. I promise that, because I think it's quite a bit to take in what we have heard today, and I think it's also good to connect afterwards. So I will have one guest live in the room here. Please welcome with me Martha Golbe-Neumann from Her Docs. I was just there a few weeks ago in Warsaw, and we talked about impact from a feminist point of view, which was very beautiful. And then online we are joined by Laura Longobardi from FIFDH, who initiated the Impact Days in Geneva, and we are going to talk about the issue of impact from a festival perspective and why we as festivals do impact. So welcome to both of you. Thank you so much for joining me. I will start with Laura very briefly, because I know she is, she was just appointed co-director of the festival, and as I said, she initiated the Impact Days, and I know you just closed your call for film projects for the Impact Days, and you are now in the difficult situation of selecting them. Do you want to give us a brief feedback on what the Impact Days are, why you founded it? I think it's 5 or 6 years ago. And what's your take on film and impact from the Impact Days?
Yes, well, I think, first of all, thank you so much for this invitation. I wish I could be with you in Berlin, but as you were mentioning, I was recently appointed to a co-director of the festival, so it's a very busy day. And as you always also mentioned, we just closed the application for film projects for the next edition of the Impact Days that is taking place from the 10th to the 12th of March 2024. And we have received the amazing number of 162 projects, 63 different countries. So it's another very, very difficult task, as you say, to make the selection. Every year we see not only the amount of projects that grows, the number of countries, but also, I would say, the quality of the projects and of the impact of the really what it's clear what filmmakers want to do with their films, which, as I was listening to the last part of your previous panel, it's really about doing more with your film, and there is this very strong intentionality in a lot of filmmakers who make films for a broader purpose than, and I always put very big brackets when I say than, showing it to a generalistic audience, because I think that those films are still good enough to be made, films that just reach audiences. But there are some filmmakers who want to do more, and we are there for them. Just to answer your question, you're right, Impact Days. Well, the first year was 2019, and it was 1 day, so we added the S a little bit afterwards. It was just 1 day, and it was in the framework of the previously existing festival, FIFDH, International Film Festival and Forum on Human Rights, which was founded in 2003 in Geneva. And when I started the Impact Day in 2019, it was already a festival that had a very, a history in a sense, and it's very well recognized, especially in the region. And the reason it was founded, especially in Geneva, because Geneva is considered the human rights capital. It's home to among the most important organizations in the human rights field, and of course humanitarian field, from the International Red Cross to the United Nations. It's the base where every 4 months the UN look at the state of human rights in the world with the Human Rights Council. So in the idea of the founders in 2003 was really to bring the point of view of the filmmakers, of the artists in these conversations that were taking place on very, very high level, on political level, but also on the grassroots level, because Geneva is home to more than 750 NGOs. That's, this ecosystem is, of course, has grown because of the institutions that are born there, but it's a very lively ecosystem when it comes to discussions on human rights, protection of human rights, advocacy on human rights. So the festival already arrived with that intention to bringing the voice of the filmmakers, but there was, but you know, as far as I'm concerned and what I brought there, I was really very inspired. I don't know if you've been talking about it before, from the work of Doch Society, of course, previously Doch. I had the chance to attend the Good Pitch. The first one I attended, I think, was in Oslo in 2015. And the idea, and because I was coming really from the industry and I had organized a lot of pitches in my life, the idea of pitching the good films to this other part of the world that was really working on those issues on a very daily basis, and never really had the chance to find out what the films in those issues were, was really my first source of inspiration. So the first original idea was to bring the Good Pitch to Geneva, but then quite rapidly, and also, you know, discuss, you know, knowing the festival from the inside, because at that time I was working mainly for in the relationship with the partners of the festival, was the idea really to bring something that could stay and that could grow within the festival, where these two worlds could meet, could get to know each other, could find common language, with the purpose of course, working together with the same aim, which is to bring social justice and to support human rights protection wherever they are.
It's so interesting because we all at some point have been at a Good Pitch, and around the same time, and it started doing something with us. So for everybody in the room who doesn't know Good Pitch, it's a format developed by Doch Society, formerly known as BritDocs in the UK, who really started making impact production a bird. They started the whole pitching format on it, and I think they are the source of many impact producers, why they are impact producers. And at least for me and Laura, they were also the reason to start something at the festivals. Next to me, Marta, her docs, you had an impact day this year for the first year. Impact production in Poland, as you told me, is even further unknown as here. So I invited you as I intended, and I thought it would be so beautiful to share the knowledge that we had there and the impressions and how it all unfolded in Warsaw. Could you share with us your inspiration for the day and what came out at the end?
Maybe I also say a few words about the HerDocs organization. It's a foundation. It exists 3 years. And so far, we organized like 2 editions of Film Festival. It's dedicated to support and promote female documentary filmmakers at one side, but also like through documentary filmmaking and films, also support, educate and empower females, girls. We do a lot of educational events and talks, not only to industry, but also like around Poland in different contexts. So there were 2 very successful international film festivals, and this year we organized for the first time HerDocs Forum. It was 2 parts. One public part was opened to audience who wanted to come. There were film screenings and also some events, lectures and meetings with the directors that came to us. And the second part, industry part, 3 days close for industry members. With 3 days of panels, with almost 30 experts and I think around 70 participants who were there with us. It was also international. So yes, we thought of making like an impact day during our event. It was, I think, like Herdox in its DNA is also like an impact organization. I think the things we are doing also aim for this social, personal change as well as care. Because also like during our forum there was a lot about the collectivity, community support, self-care in this process. We really feel that it's very needed as well at the beginning of the career as well as later on. So this is like our main focus. An idea of an impact day was first of all, it's the theme is known on the market and it's like growing the interest in impact definitely, and like in our region it was not really known till I mean like present. So we really wanted to bring it, but also kind of humanize it, because like the eastern you go, the less are the budgets, and it was kind of I felt that within the industry it was kind of interesting, but at the same time also a bit scary, that may be impossible because of that because of this availability yes of the possibilities. So we wanted really to sit and talk about the idea, the possibilities, the different approaches as well to impact with like a big I don't know, agency or producers attached or more personal approach, and to talk about these challenges and costs that are not only financial but also like the emotional costs and we had a really very interesting discussions, I guess, throughout the event, and what was also important for me that it's brought here in this female context, that we also feel that we somehow do it with each of our film. We don't name it really, but it is what we do. But also that very often this engagement of us is different. Yes, I'm not saying better. It's different. It's more emotional. Sometimes more costs included. So we also wanted to talk about it openly and to think about how we can support each other, you know, like wanting to do it and yes, willing to do it. Mm.
Laura, coming back to that, I mean, what I've seen in the past quite often is that there are different expectations to impact campaigns, and there's also like on both sides, on the NGO and on the filmmaker sides, there's a bit of anxiety that it's going to be too much. Now you're running this project for 5 years. How do you support the filmmakers in their impact campaign? And I know you have this one-to-one meetings, this kind of speed dating. How is it received, and where can pitching sessions like yours step in and help filmmakers to develop their projects?
Sorry, I was muted. Well, the interesting thing about launching a new initiative, which is what we did in 2019, is also to explore and to experiment and to adapt to the needs and to the feedback of the participants. So we started one day, and now we are over 2 months with some online things starting in January and then a live event in March. And every year we added something because we asked what was needed on both sides. And when I'm talking about both sides, of course, I'm talking about filmmakers, but also the NGOs and the international organizations. And we tried to, you know, add something that could respond to that need. And that's why the program was stretched. Also, COVID helped in a way, because then we
you know, when we organize a live event like a festival, you never think that there are things that can happen outside of the live event. But in fact, there are things. And so we launched the Impact Lab online 2 months before the festival. So that's something that was unimaginable before the COVID in a way. But to answer your question, the listening to both sides, we heard that it was too much to just bring people together like that. You know, I have a feel on death penalty. You are the responsible for Amnesty International that deals with death penalty. That's a great starting point, but that's not enough to understand each other. Because you need to find the way in which you speak the same language and you can imagine what you can do together and not just say, yes, we want to stop death penalty. That's not enough. You need to have concrete things that you can imagine that you can do together. So that's why we included on the filmmakers side. So we do this call, we select 16 projects from around the world. End of November, we have the selection. And then in January, we start with a training for the filmmakers, which is online, as I mentioned before, and that really helps them develop what they can do with their films, their goals, concrete actions, who are the best partners to do that. So really look into what they can concretely do with their object film. And of course, I say it on purpose because we are talking about what we can do with film. And that's the thing. And of course, especially every year more, filmmakers have very clear ideas on what they want to do, what they can do, what is realistic. Some arrive with a very strong intentionality, but they haven't developed yet what they can do. So that's what they do. And on the other side, we also organize an event prior to the festival, a workshop with the NGOs in which we pre-pitch them the 16 films, and we ask them to imagine what they can do with those films and ask them who are the right people to be matched. So we really prepare these meetings that then eventually happen during the live event in Geneva in March, where there are 3 days of public program with master classes and case studies. And then we do, last year we did for the first, well, this year, edition 2023, we did for the first time a live pitch. Before it was just the one-ones, which is great because then you see, in the morning, the variety of the problems that we have around the world, but also of the solutions, because a lot of these films do have at the center very many times, activists and something very positive towards the solution of the problems. And then we do the one-to-ones. So all this preparation helps us identify the right people within the organization, getting in touch with them, preparing them to what to expect, and then we organize more than 100 one-to-ones between the 16 projects and the organizations, and then I introduce, I think, what's coming next. We try to bring funders around those tables, because that's, of course, a very important part of this triangle. You have the arts, you have the activism, but you need the money because it's extra activities, it's extra budget, and as was here before in the discussion, not always it can be funded by the traditional cinema or audiovisual funds. So we also have we are lucky enough to be in Geneva, which is, of course, in Europe geographically and in many other senses, but it has a very strong tradition of philanthropy and foundations, a little bit like the US. So we try to bring to these events more and more funders, mainly issue-driven, I would say, who are concerned about access to water or, protection of children or, whatever their angle is, so that in this matchmaking, they can also see the interest of supporting a connection between the right film and the right organizations and what they can do together. So we are... So the expectations are growing every time more, because of course when you do an impact lab, you see all the wonderful things that you could do with your film and all the actions that you can launch with your campaign. But then, of course, these expectations can very fast become frustration if that cannot happen because you don't have the founder. So I would definitely say that's the biggest challenge of this whole, movement that we are supporting, and that we can really, and we should really find ways to find more and more resources that come into the impact production field.
The last part that you said, it's so important that you find also the financial support, like institutionalized for impact production. And also thank you for mentioning it again, it was also on the panel before, like the translation between the different actors in the field of impact production, the filmmakers, the producers, the NGOs. We had that before, but I think that's really essential. For me, it was my first Docs festival just a few weeks ago, and I really loved how interactive it was and how openly everyone spoke out. That was very unusual to what I know from other festivals. So if you're looking back, I guess you're now kind of in the evaluation phase. How was did you manage to humanize impact production? Did you spark an interest? And from the feedback that you got, what's needed to foster impact production also in like Poland and surrounding countries?
Yes, so there is an interest, definitely. We can say it. There is also like interest in having like more extended event, like kind of a workshop or something that can bring more knowledge already to particular projects and ideas. So this is something that we have in mind and thinking about for the future editions. It's like wonderful what you do, exactly this connections. I feel it's also very important to do it locally, that actually it's like Elvira said, the impact campaign can totally differ in one country and another. These different perspectives. So this would be something that we would love to also bring, like not only the funding, but also the perspectives and ideas from the local markets and needs.
Maybe a question for you, as we are at the end of our first block. Very brief. Very brief, because we all need lunch and drinks and coffee. But for both of you, where do you see the responsibility of festivals in the whole impact world and circus, in particular of topic-driven festivals like Docs or FIFDH? Laura, maybe are you with us currently? No, then we'll start with Marta and hope that Laura will be back online in a second. So where do you see the responsibility that we have as festivals?
No, for me, it's I have this support mindset somehow. So for me, this would be like a platform for connecting, for like networking, for finding the right partners. Sometimes maybe also like not every filmmaker feels and wants to do it on its own. So it's not only funders, but also like creative partners, like to work on the impact campaign. I've heard already the situations where there was like a really amazing project with the potential for impact campaign, and the director said, no, I want that my role in this as a filmmaker, like I don't have capacities, also emotional, to go further, yes, and that's why like identifying those needs, those projects who have or have not potential, defining the expectations and connecting and supporting along the way.
I feel the same way. I feel we should be a support network. Laura, you're back. Very, very brief. Where do you see the role of festivals, the festival's responsibility in terms of impact production? Our closing words. I see you're writing. I don't think... No, we lost her. But it was, in case you hear me, or Lydia will write that to you, thank you so much for joining me, both of you. I think it was very insightful also to hear the festival's perspective. Thank you all to you. You have had coffee in the morning. I hope in the same room there will be lunch. We will...
Sorry, but I had to open the streaming in... Are you still there?
Yeah, you're back.
No.
So much for joining me, both of you. I think it was very insightful also to hear the festival's perspective.
I'm hearing myself now.
Thank you.
I think that's a sign for a break. We see each other back at 12:50 with Vivian hosting you throughout the rest of the day. Thank you so much for joining you. In case you thought it was helpful, please give words that you can rewatch it on YouTube. Thank you.
Good to see you. So good to see you.